Aloha! Thanks for tuning in for part 2 of our workshop that we taught in high elevation Puna. In this video, we actually plant the tree. So we show what our process is, what the ratio of cinder to soil should be in the different elevation climates of the island. We talk about long-term care when you're making a mound, mulch crops. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. Aloha!
I was wondering if any Google gets anaerobic down there from not having enough oxygen.
You definitely want to keep it
bigger logs.
Under 2 feet deep. Like the original mound can be over that, but when you're like widening the mound out, you generally only want 2 feet of mulch. And you can stick an O bar through, but if you're just using 100% cinder, like if you need to save money, just get the pure cinder and then just put like 50% mulch with it. And you're not really going to have to worry about aeration if that happens. There's just so many bubbles. And I would get the larger cinder up here. Yeah. Unless you're for potting medium, you can get the smaller stuff. But the larger stuff just has way more of those pukas.
What about like slightly bigger rocks? Like...
Yeah, you can totally add them. Blue rock is really nutritious.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can kind of make a circle around the base to give it structure. Yeah, totally. Anything to raise it up in a mound. So we're raising it up to combat, over moisturizing and flooding. And then we just need to make sure it's not too tall, and we need to make it a little bit wide over time so it doesn't just topple over in a windstorm, right? So if you have if you're planting a papaya or something from the desert, then you could use the rocks to make an extra tall, well-draining mound. Versus if you're planting something from the rainforest, then you don't want to give it too much drainage.
So up here, I don't know if you guys can see this. You'll see it as we go, but our cinder soil mix, this is like, I would say this is probably a 70 or 80% cinder to soil ratio because it is so wet up here. If we were at sea level, this would be reversed. We would have 80% soil with like 20% cinder. Depending on the plant, of course. Just know your environment. Up here, you guys basically could get away with doing all cinder, like he was saying. We actually made a garden. If you guys happen to see our YouTube video with Tony, we actually made a whole garden using just albizia logs and cinder. We used 0 soil in it, and we just kept putting a load of albizia leaves and mulch on top. And that thing has soil now. We dug down a foot, and it took a foot before you started to see just black cinder with no soil mixed in, and it's only been a year?
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years since we made it. So, it breaks down really fast.
One thing to think about is I actually cleared out the logs right in the middle because I want this taproot to go straight down.
Like a log cabin.
Yeah, so build a log cabin and then just have a little hole for the taproot to go down.
You're not using any ash or char?
We don't have any, but
awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Ash is also gonna fix the pH, and then it has potassium in it.
You mentioned coral?
Yeah, so coral's got the calcium. It's gonna help fix the pH, but it's not as high in magnesium.
Okay.
So you guys probably didn't see it. This is like so second nature for us that we just kind of started. But what I did was I cleared out an area in between the logs, and then we started filling it in cinder soil. And mainly it's like if you can get the roots down as far as you can, that's awesome. You also want to make sure that there's not like a bunch of holes. Like as I'm planting, I'm also making sure that all the holes in between the logs are filled in, because once roots hit air pockets, they hate that.
They just stop growing if they hit an air pocket. So yeah, you can just kind of tamp.
But they need air.
Yeah, but not too much air,
Right.
It's like foolish. What is that you're planting right now?
Oh, so this is a mame sapote. You guys might have seen them. They're kind of football shaped, like brown fruits that put out kind of a sweet potato type of fruit, and they get really big. We actually didn't know that they would fruit up here until we were selling plants at a farmer's market at Maku'u. And somebody up here told us that their sapote is producing like gangbusters. And we were saying this earlier, like, you guys, everything above 1,000 feet is like no man's land. People are like, what can you even grow? If you want to give a tree a chance, do it for science. You know? Like, if you can get that thing to fruit, you have put that fruit on the map for everyone living up here. Because we're all just trying to grow some food. Like, we've got a couple clients that live at 1,800 feet elevation, and he's just like trying all sorts of stuff, like dwarf coconuts, because he's like, if I know I can get it to fruit here, then everyone knows they can get it to fruit here. Okay,
So here's how we
moving
like to
on.
plant a tree. We you can pick your ground cover. So after we've laid the base foundation, I like to just stick cuttings of ornamental stuff in, or it can be like perennial peanut. You can do sweet potato. The ground cover is going to, especially creepers like sweet potato, widelia, they're going to actually send their roots directly into this rotting wood, and they're gonna also so they're gonna make it break down faster, and they're gonna hold the moisture in by not letting the
carbon.
sun even touch this. So if you have like a coleus layer or something, it can be squash. Covering the ground, it's gonna insulate. It's gonna protect during times of drought. You're gonna have a lot less evaporation. You know, even up here we can have droughts. So
It also fixes more carbon.
right, so and you can chop and drop them. You could do a ring of comfrey around the edge to keep the weeds out and just chop and drop it. You could do
Or
lemongrass.
Yeah.
We like coleus because we like our place to look absolutely beautiful.
And what that does, you know, I mean, it's gonna create big plants, and it's gonna act as shade for the little baby plant while it's growing. So it'll be the shade, which is gonna cool down the soil. Like as the sun's hitting this is gonna keep this from getting really hot since it's black. So it's gonna help protect the roots as well. And then obviously, like he was saying, you can just, if it gets big, you chop it, you put it on the plant, that goes to feeding the plant. Because any green leaf is nitrogen. So literally, I mean, it could be Mexican sunflower, it could even be Coster's curse, which is like the worst weed. As long as it hasn't gone to seed, even guinea grass, I mean, as long as it hasn't gone to seed, that is valuable mulch. Because Mexican sunflower and some others as well, they actually have the same amount of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, as cow manure per pound. Obviously, it takes a lot more.
Comfrey tea is really easy to make and really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
mining all the
Yeah.
minerals from the
Yeah,
soil.
I think it's got like a 502 or a 602 or something.
About Mexican sunflower and albizia, they both evolved on lava rock. So I believe that they are superior, as well as ohia, superior at mining minerals out of the cinder. So I'm not suggesting that you all plant albizia, but if you did want to, it's very easy to, if you chop them once a year, they're never going to go to seed. They're never going to become weedy. And I believe they're the best miners of minerals out of the lava rock. Yeah,
You just want to see
are,
a giant.
albizas are actually, if you cut them once a year, it's actually really easy to keep a hold of them.
I've been surprised how slow mine is growing
Yeah,
up here.
it's when they're uninterrupted, they hit an exponential growth curve.
When they get big, oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's every time you cut it, once they're getting that exponential growth curve, you cut it, starts over at zero, and it has to build all that. It has to
Right.
draw energy out of its roots, and it slows it down. That's true of Mexican sunflower too. Like, if you're going on vacation and you're worried your sunflower is going to grow too big, cut it once and then cut it like 2 weeks later, and it's going to be hurting so bad because it has to draw out of its root reserves to build those new leaves.
These roots, I mean, coleus roots don't get that deep.
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna compete with the fruit trees as far as how vigorous and how deep they can go.
It's interesting though, because I noticed comfrey does good around fruit trees, but comfrey roots go really deep.
It's not a problem if they go deep, especially every time you cut a plant, some of its roots die off, right? So, let's say, like, okay, so the best time to chop and drop is during the rainy season, because if you chop and drop during a drought, then you're just allowing the sun to just bake all the moisture out of the soil. So yeah, so right now it's rainy. So let's say these coleus got too big, I was ready to chop and drop them. As soon as I cut them, a bunch of their roots die off, and they just turn into compost. So, and then they are going to release growth hormone through the soil and through the air, and they're going to actually, while they're releasing growth hormone to get themselves to grow again, it's actually making this plant grow faster. So this would be called a guild in permaculture, where we have like support species and then the main species. If we just take a guild and put it in a line, Then you have syntropic agroforestry, which some of you may have heard of.
Can I just say also, we mentioned like the proper height, like you're doing
Yeah.
right now, how
Sure.
far
Yeah.
up those roots, and obviously, you know, when you are
Yeah.
mulching later, you don't want a volcano around the trunk that's already
Right.
exposed, that's not exposed.
If you've seen a tree blow over from the wind and you look at the roots, most of the roots don't go that deep. So it's the feeder roots that are really feeding the tree, the ones that are, you know, going horizontally.
And stabilizer roots. They're
Mhm.
Right.
stabilizer roots
Mhm.
too, yeah.
Right, those are what are
Right,
feeding the
so-
tree. So if you're gonna, let's say, you know, this could honestly use a little more soil, but we're gonna call it good for now. But let's say, you know, you're ready to feed this tree again. What you would do is your next stick pile, you just start throwing logs in concentric rings around the outside, right? So I'm gonna, like, you throw logs, whatever mulch around the outside, bring the level up to the same level as the mound, then bury that with cinder, and then put mulch on top, and then just keep moving it outward, because eventually you could get the tree roots, you know, all the way out to here, right?
Well,
So
and
just
it's
picture
also-
building the soil up with mulch and cinder.
And it's also encouraging the tree roots to spread, because if the most fertile area is out here, then it's going to continue to encourage those tree roots to reach for the nutrition. What I think you're talking about is more the side, like how deep to bury it, right?
How deep, yeah, how far to go up the trunk,
So,
and
great question, because this is a common thing that we see a lot, and it's super easy to do. You know, what I do, just be on the safe side, I will look and see where the root layer is. It's right here. And then I just enough to cover that root. So it's like I'll bury it, and then afterwards I go back and I see exactly where my first roots are and adjust accordingly, because if you guys have anything touching the bark, it'll rot it. So that's like the easiest way to kill your fruit tree that you put all this love into.
What do you
Yes?
think about all the moss? Oh, sorry, that grows on the bark up here.
I think you should take it off. It's not good for the plant. You'll always see the moss at the elbow of the tree stem, and that's always where more moisture and disease is going to creep in. So we always take the moss off. Yeah, right?
I've noticed some people when they're planting the trees, they'll mound it like you say, and then kind of like find the root
Mhm.
where it starts and cover that. But it looks like a donut where like the
Mhm.
tree is there and then it like goes up.
Yeah.
Would you
yeah.
suggest that go as flat as the root, or would you
Yeah.
have a donut like?
Yeah, you want it to be more of a plateau instead of a volcano. If it has to be that way, if it's like something that is already established and you're trying to plant it around it, like there's some trees that, yeah, will have it come down like this. But when it rains, that is more likely to fall down around your tree stem. So if you have to have the volcano crater, you would just want to do it as far away from the stem as possible, so that way if it does slide down, that it's going to be a minimal amount actually making it to the trunk.
So the steeper the slope, the more that each raindrop causes more erosion, right?
Disbursement.
So if you have almost flat, you know, versus 40, if you have a 45-degree angle, every time it rains, you're gonna have a lot of runoff, unless that's another reason why the ground cover is really important.
And mulch.
Because yeah, like we should stick some perennial peanut in, and that's just gonna hold everything in.
Because yeah, now that you have any mulch on here at all, every time a raindrop hits, it's not gonna just hit the dirt and like explode. It's gonna hit this and then trickle down.
Sponge down.
I
So
think her basket, if you're in a dry place, I think where you see people there where they're gonna water it and it's dry, then maybe having the donut would be like, it would help you to be able to water it.
right.
yeah,
Right,
a lot of times
exactly.
we use it for automatic sprinkler systems and drip lines. That way, it just doesn't run away,
For
especially with places.
but we
like
don't water
Exactly.
up here. So
Exactly. Well,
We
and
don't
the
wanna make
other
a pond,
thing
you know?
is that when you do your mulch layer, you really want to have at least 2 or 3 inches away, because when it gets dry, then if it's like, you know, like in January when it was really dry, all of our fruit trees with a bunch of mulch had dried out, and then when it did rain, it only saturated maybe the first half inch or a centimeter of the mulch
Hydrophobic.
because it was so dry. So if you keep the mulch far enough away from the plant, this is going to collect that rain and it's going to drip down the tree into the soil right around it. So if there's no mulch really close to it, then the soil is actually going to be able to absorb the water that's dripping off of the leaves and off of the tree stem.
So you might hear like, don't make a mulch volcano. Actually, to be more accurate, you want a shield volcano with a caldera,
Yeah.
not a stratovolcano, okay?
Right, yeah.
So yeah, just make sure that you got a nice caldera. And one other thing, one mistake we see when people are stick mulching, so you can see, I was like kind of breaking this all down. If we go like this, and you got stuff up in the air like this, the less compacted it is with the mulch, the more up in the air it is. Like if you just have a really loose branch pile, the fungi can't get to this stuff. Like it's dried out, it's in the sun, it's not touching. You know, the mycelium, they have those tendrils. They have to like move through the mulch as a medium. Like if they're like an octopus, they need to be underwater. They can't go in the air, right? So you need to make sure that your mulch is all broken down. And even something I'll do, because I'm lazy, I get it. I'll just throw the stick mulch on and then come back in like 2 or 3 months and just stomp it all down, and it'll be so rotten that it just all crumbles. But you don't want big air pockets in your stick mulch. So yeah, so this stuff, this high nitrogen stuff on top is facilitating feeding to break down the stuff
carbon.
on bottom, right? All of this carbon mulch. So if we just keep adding, you know, Mexican sunflower leaves, stick mulch, and just keep adding the outside, then you'll see in about a year, you'll just see mushrooms popping out of this thing everywhere. I mean, from year 1 to 3, it's just like a fungal, you know, happy place. It's their happy place. So yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching our episode. This is it for part 2. We will have part 3 coming in a few weeks. I want to do a shout out to Tony from Off Grid Neighbors. You can go check out his channel. He was the one who inspired us to get our channel started. He had us on his channel, so you guys can see us doing a farm tour of our own place on his channel. And actually, Tony hosted the place where we taught our workshops. So that's actually his property. So it's a funny way that we crisscrossed on each other's channels. So definitely check out his channel. He's a really awesome guy, and his focus is more on off-grid building. Thanks, buddy. You've been a really good influence on us. If you guys want to get a hold of us for any food foresting needs, we do consultations, scouting, excavator work, landscape design, installations, all sorts of good stuff. You can get a hold of us at foodforestfolks@gmail.com. We are on Facebook and Instagram under Food Forest Folks, and you can also check out our website, which is www.foodforestfolks.com. And if you're on the Big Island, we try to be at Maku'u Market every Sunday selling plants. So you can always come see us and talk stories, say what was helpful, what you want to see more of. We hope to see you soon. Aloha! In this video, we are planting the tree, and we're talking about in the tree. We're planting in the tree.